I don't know if you ever had the thought that came to mind when you drove into a parking lot and you saw this really beautiful car parked over in the corner all by itself. I thought it was vanity until one day, after investing in my own luxury car, I got it out on the road and took a trip to Alabama. 3 days after that, I pulled up to a stoplight in a one-stoplight town behind a dump truck. And of course, behind me, people piled up. And as the light turned, I expected the dump truck to move. Well, it just started rumbling, and all of a sudden, the back of the dump truck started coming up. I start beeping my horn. I turn around and look at the guy, and he's just waving at me with a single finger. And I keep beeping my horn. And about that time, bang, the rocks start hitting the front of my brand new luxury car. I get out, furious. Turn around and walk back to this guy. He's getting out and just laughing. And he's saying, "Dude, you are lucky." And I'm saying, "What? It's 3 days old." He said, "You're lucky you weren't on a motorcycle, dude." And so it was that thought process that I realized that maybe parking the car over in the lot or keeping my distance might have some merit. Well, it was that thought that caused me to have a problem. And it's that kind of thinking that causes people who have accidents to have a problem. The good thing is it is now quantifiable in measurable motivations. You can differentiate, and it has been quantified and validated, that people who have accidents have different motivations than people who don't. And so what I hope to leave with you today is what those differences are and how you can make them work. The first thing I want to share with you is the fact that there's a history in the area of safety. For 32 years, from 1937 on to 69, we dropped the fatalities 58%. That was without a regulatory agent. In 1969, along came the OSHA Act, and there were rules imposed, and OSHA took 40 years to get that same significant drop in increase. And the challenge was, though, from 1992 to 2012, the fatality rate only dropped 1.4 people for every 100 in the workforce. And that was with an increase of tripling it to $500 million a year. Now, we can say that that's not very good. Or we can look at the reason behind why OSHA was founded. OSHA was founded on the premise that could provide a safe workplace for their employees. The Office of Technology Assessment says that OSHA's job is to make sure that the rules are set in place. However, the enforcement aspect of it has not been carried out very well, because 20 years after OSHA was founded, 93% of all of the accidents that brought about fatalities by the companies that they were working for never were brought to the criminal justice system. So there was never really enforcement behind that concept. Now, what have we got to do to take that next leap, and instead of it taking 20 years to reduce it 1.4 people in 100,000, how can we make it better? Well, the first thing is we have to look at people. It's people that have accidents, is it not? OSHA was tasked with making safe work environments, and that's what they're doing. They made laws and edicts to do that. But guess what, folks? We got people like this, either overconfident are underprepared for what the circumstances might have. This is one mentality. There's another mentality that says that I can do anything, just dare me. They're careless. And then there's the mentality in the workplace today that says, I may not be able to meet all the rules, therefore, you know what? I'll pay the fines. It happens every day, folks. And so, what have we got to do to change the way that the works and get some better results? Well, first of all, I think it's important that we don't sit along the side and wait for OSHA to do something. We have to take this into our own hands and begin to look at something. We literally have to have a paradigm shift. And in that paradigm shift, what we have to do is move away from old things and begin to think about things the way that businesses become successful today. And how do they become successful? They use data and they use metrics, do they not? And in that process, all of that data and that accumulated information is put to work. And that's what we have to do to move away from this mindset as is. Now let me tell you, businesses run marketing surveys, don't they? To check and see if they can find a market share. What do they use? Data. Then businesses take it to the second step by developing pro formas and make sure that they have the financial wherewithal to not just launch a company but sustain a company. Where businesses have failed today is they haven't taken the data from the people to ensure that the process is complete. We have data about the business plan, we have data about the financial plan, but we're not using data about people's brains to make the process complete. So, let's talk about how we take that data, how we apply the metrics that moves us from purely an environmental mindset to a people mindset. I'm going to give you the 12 pieces of the puzzle that will change the safety environment. And first, let's look at the external factors. Well, I know everyone in this audience has had an experience with trying to explain something to another person, going through all of the details, trying to make it understandable, and they just didn't get it. As you shake your heads, it's something we can't avoid. It happens every day. Now here's the challenge. If you are not clear about what the safety rules are within the mind may cave in on you if you hit the wrong button. So communication is very different in an unsafe employee than it is a safe employee. Clarity of communication has a huge impact. That come from the external environment that impact whether a person can be safe is the overall amount of negativity in their environment. Negativity in the environment has a huge impact on keeping our ability to focus, our ability to concentrate, and our ability to relate to what's actually going on around us. The next thing is that when there's physical discomfort or aches and pains, you are distracted. And so it is with the unsafe employee when we compare it to the safe employee. The third thing is when there is anxiety and stress in an individual's environment, they do not have the ability to fully focus, and they become discouraged, which leads to depression. Now, here's a fact we all know. My good friend Dr. John Burns said after his studies that as the adrenaline rate increases due to anxiety, discouragement, or depression, the cognitive abilities decrease. And as that anxiety increases and the adrenaline increases, you're not able to reason and think as well as you were. the chances of having an accident at that point are highly elevated, and it's all coming from external sources. But let's think about the other part. There are internal sources too. And internal sources can come from things like carelessness. Now, don't haven't texted while you were driving. But in a workplace, if you don't wear those gloves when you do an acid treatment, or you don't put the goggles on when you're using the bandsaw, what can happen? The vision goes away. The hands go away. Carelessness is significant because it's at a much higher rate with people that have accidents than those that don't. Fearlessness is something that, as we saw with the guy that loves to kiss cobras, is something that has to deal with overconfidence or underestimation. We can come into things overconfident or underestimating what the costs are. After 6 or 7 bachelor's degrees, several master's degrees, and a couple of doctoral students, I'm broke, folks. Overestimation of our capacities can be huge. That fearlessness can have a huge impact on the safety environment. And then, of course, there's that hopeless nature that many people have. They don't feel that they can ever get out of that environment. We've seen movies about the coal miners who knew that they were getting black lung disease, and yet they kept going back down in there. We see employers today that would rather pay the fines than take the risk away. Hopelessness is one of those things that has a massive impact on safety. So, when we think about those mentalities of external and internal concepts, we know that it's people that have the accidents, not the environment per se. So we have to switch our mentality. We can't blame OSHA. OSHA's doing its job. They are here to help us have safe work environments. And even though they don't have the people to enforce it, it's our responsibility to take the next step and move people to a point to where they begin to look at what really causes the accidents, and that's people's brains and the way they're wired. I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work with University of Missouri professor Chris Martin before he passed away, and Jeffrey Cowan. We did a 5-year study over 4 different industries: the chemical, municipality, the transportation. And during that study, we studied employees who had not had chargeable accidents and ones that had. We gave them all the same motivational quotient test. And here's the results that we came up with. Employees who were not able to communicate or understand as clearly at a 40% higher level became safe. Employees who had extreme negativity in their environment at a 46% higher level were unsafe compared to the safe employee. Negativity, where there's physical discomfort, physical aches and pains, at a 28% higher rate caused people to be more accident prone. The stress and anxiety, though, really ratcheted up because there's a 59% difference when a person has stress and anxiety of someone who has accidents and one that doesn't. But the real key is when all of those external factors add up, there's 83% difference between employees who have accidents and the ones that don't. That discouragement, that depression aspect has a massive impact on whether a person is safe or not. Now, when we look at the internal factors, the carelessness, an individual will bring about something that actually hurts them at a 55% higher rate. Those that are fearless or overconfident or underestimate what the issues are, there's also that 55% higher rate. And those that don't have hope, they can get out of an environment that will cause them pain and know they have to endure that environment for long periods of time, simply give up and let go of the rules and regulations because they feel stuck there at a 41% higher rate. Now that we have these data and statistics, and we understand what makes a person unsafe in their work environment, what do we do with all of that? Well, I think the most important thing is that we make sure that we obtain objective data. Objective data is not like your DISC test. It's not like your simple surveys. You have to have an assessment tool that measures the validity of the information that you get from the individual. You can't use fun tests. You have to use objective data. And once that objective data is there, then you can weigh it against what needs to be done. Next, you have to get rid of the unsafe behaviors because safety training energizes people. It gives them information that they didn't have. It makes them feel more confident. Well, what is energized? Not just the positive parts. They don't walk away just feeling good. The negative or the counterproductive of the unsafe behaviors are elevated too. The whole person gets energized, and we forget that. The key is removing the unsafe behaviors before you put them in safety training. In the surveys that I've done and the companies that I've worked with, accidents actually went up after safety training. The last thing that you need to do is benchmark your environments and ensure that those environments have the benchmark set that may not be our national averages because we saw small variances between the 4 particular industries that we studied. But benchmark your company, compare those so that you know how to customize the training that you have and supplement into the already good safety principles that you have. And you put those 3 things together, then you have the opportunity to make your environment safe. And I hope I've been of help to you today and help make your environment a little more safe. Thank you very much.